What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and let's continue the Volvo 164 project. In the last episode the engine was running but little rough, and now the plan is to make it run smoother. My friend gave me extra Strömberg carburetor. I think this is from some 4-cylinder Volvo engine, and I used some parts for my car. For example, I didn't have the lever for the extra idle when you put the choke on. I took it from this carb. It is little different than in 164, but it's working, so I don't see the problem. And at the same time I dismantled the choke mechanism, and I cleaned everything and just checked that everything is okay. Then in the other side there is this plastic cover, this yellow one. Inside here is the temperature compensator air valve or something like that. So it gives more air through the carb when the engine is warm. And those should be like moving freely. But in my car, in both carburetors, the valve was like stuck. So I cleaned everything and now they're moving freely. And then the front carburetor has this bypass valve, like when you're using the engine brake. I think it's like bypass valve that the engine works a little bit smoother or something. I took that apart and just checked that everything is okay, and that seems fine, so I just cleaned everything and put it back. And the choke cable was stuck, the original one. The cover was like broken and it didn't move all the way, just like a little bit. So I changed the cable and I put a brand new one, some universal cable, and now the choke is working like 100%. Other than that and the cleaning of the carbs, I haven't done anything. So let's see if those made the idle more smooth. And as you can see, the car has changed its location in the garage. We needed the lift to make some service for some more modern car than this. And it was fun to compare 1970 Volvo engine bay and just few years old hybrid Volkswagen engine bay. There's quite more components in the modern car, and here there's just space. It's fun comparison. But now let's start the car and see if we have made some improvements. At least the extra idle is working. Now it's idling on its own, the choke is off. Still a little shaky, but I think it's getting there. I forget to check few things from the carburetors when they were on the table. The float level, I forget to check that, and you need to do it like when the carburetor is on the table upside down. And I'm glad that I did it now, because in the rear carburetor it was all over the place. The fuel level was way too low. The front carburetor was better, but I needed to adjust that also to have the correct values. So I think the car was like way too lean because of the fuel level. And I took out all the spark plugs to check them. And all three in the back, 4, 5, 6, they looked like they have been running more lean. The 2 and 3 were like much more darker. And if I remember right, the first one was like most white. So I'm not sure if there is some kind of air leakage somewhere here or what is the cause. Even with 2 carbs, the idle settings, they are like, they both carbs affects to the whole engine, because the intake manifold has a connection chamber, so it mixes the mixture of both carbs. But of course it's better if you have like adjust both carbs at the same way. At the same time I checked all the spark plugs gap, adjust them 0.7 millimeters. And I also took out the distributor to check it, and I adjust a little bit the gap between the breaker. It's now 0.25 millimeters. And at the same time I noticed that this timing advance vacuum chamber, other connection was a bit loose. I think I put chemical metal 7 years ago and it was a little cracked. And I tested on the bench and it was leaking a little bit. So I put new chemical metal in there. So now it seems to be airtight. And I had this fuel pressure gauge tool in my garage that I almost have forgotten. I bought it to check the fuel pressure of that loader, and it had this adapter that you can put between the hoses. And I found this old pressure gauge. I hope this is for fuel. At least it holds a few minutes to check the fuel pressure that it's correct. But other than that, I haven't done much. I still need to check the basic timing, but I think it needs to be done when the car is like warmed up. And the throttle rods are disconnected at this time, so I try to make it run only in idle first. You have to adjust the idle with these first, and after that you need to adjust the length of these, that the cap in here is correct. So I just let them loose right now. Check out my new seat, racing. I had to put something that I can drive it. The instrument cluster is still like loose. Someone might have noticed in the last video that the only warning light that was working was for the charger amperage. And I noticed that the oil pressure sensor was faulty. I changed that, still no oil pressure light. And there was broken light bulb in there. And actually there was like three old lights in the cluster. So I took it apart, and now the amperage, handbrake and oil pressure light is working, and the temp gauge. So I think now it's the time to start the car again and see if any of my adjustment has done good or bad for the engine. The fuel pressure, it seems to be like 0.3 bars. That seems to be a little odd that it just turns off. I hope you can see there's like 40, 30, 20 and those two holes, and between them is like hole that has pin in it, and that pin is like almost in 10 degrees. So I think we need to just line that pin with that notch. Pretty close. Maybe it's like 9. Little running after the shut off. Yes, I just finished the checking of the timing, which was quite okay, by the way, 9 to 10 degrees without the vacuum hoses connected. And I turned my back to the car and I just heard this and the lower coolant hose gave up. I did this temporary solution 7 years ago because the connection in the radiator is too big and too far away of that hose. So it's like bad decision to put bigger hose above the smaller hose. And this radiator is not original. This is from, I think, Chevelle or something, some American car. I bought it from eBay from the US. I just checked the dimensions and that the hose locations are like okay to fit this car, because the original radiator was like rotted, and this car is the only model with that specific radiator. So I couldn't find one, and the repair of the original was like 500 euros, and I thought that it was too much. This was like 200 shipped, so I ended up to this. The car was starting to idle like okay, but there was some weird cutoff at time to time, but it usually started right away. So I'm not sure, like, is it fuel or ignition, because I checked the fuel meter. It was jumpy, but it was like 0.3 bars, which is okay. So I don't think it's the fuel problem, or then the other carb is like somehow shutting off the fuel. I don't know. I need to check if there's some kind of bad connection or something, because they are old wires. So maybe it's like that, or the coil or the resistor. But before I can continue to make it run nice, I need to fix the coolant issue, because this is also something that I don't like. It gives this like possible air pocket. This is the highest place. In the original, the tank is at the top and the connection goes like this, so it's not a problem. But with this radiator, this should be more flat. So I'm gonna weld a tighter turn right to this thermostat cover, so it stays at the same level. And I think at the same time I'm gonna weld some smaller and longer outlet in the radiator for the lower hose. And after that is sorted, I can put the coolant back in the engine and start the car again and see how it behaves. I think I need more fuel because I put like 10 liters and I have been running the car in, so the tank is pretty empty. Now the cooling system has been upgraded a little bit. Now the upper hose line is much better. It's like level with the radiator, and the top part is now the cap. I was gonna put new hose in here. I actually bought one, but it was too big. I didn't remember the diameter, so this has to last a few rounds. And the lower hose is now connected like it should. I used the old original thermostat cover. It has this nice shape that is holding now. And at the same time I welded the brackets for the radiator. Before that it was just lying there with the hoses. As you can see, I'm not a welder, but you can always weld. The lower part still needs some attention, but I'm gonna fix that when the engine is out and there is more room. But now I can put the coolant back to the engine, and then I can see if my welds are holding or if there is some leaks. I can mark them and weld them back later. I don't have the 12 angle meter, so I'm improvising, and I used my oscilloscope. I connected between the ground and the negative side of the coil, and the distributor cap is off, so the car won't start. And I paused it, and those spikes that is like more or less randomly, I think they're just some kind of interference, so don't mind about those. But in the bottom line you can see it's like same time every time, and it's this slope. So now I measured the time that it takes to be down here and this upper downslope time. Those times were 55 milliseconds and the other one was 80 milliseconds. So that is the time that the breaker is on/off. And I multiplied that by 6, and the whole revolution is like 816 milliseconds. Then I took 360 degrees and divided that by the total time of one revolution. So 1 degree took like 0.441 milliseconds. So then I multiplied that by the 80, and it gave me 36.29 degrees. And the owner manual says it should be 40 degrees plus minus 3. So it's pretty close, but still like a little bit out of range. I measured the cap with the what is file gauge, or what is it called, and I put it like 0.25 millimeters the cap, but of course it's not that accurate. So now I'm trying to adjust it a little bit and take another measurement and calculate again and see if this has changed, so I know that my calculations are correct. But just for hint, if you don't have the 12 meter, you can use oscilloscope as well. You just have to do some math. When you loosen this bolt, there is this little notch in here, and you can put a flat screwdriver and slowly adjust it to make it right, and then tighten the screw, of course. I opened the cap a little bit, so I think it should give more dwell angle. Okay, the first time I adjusted, I thought that I adjusted just a little bit, and I took the measurement, and it was looking like funny, and I didn't like get it. Then I checked the cap, and I adjusted too much, so the cap didn't like open at all. So of course it didn't show there. But I tweeted a few times, and now I'm pretty close. Now the close time is 89.6 milliseconds, and that is 38.8 degrees. So it is like 1.2 degrees away. So I think I'm gonna leave it there because it is so hard to adjust so tiny amount. So let's try how it runs. Joo, ilmavuotohan sillä on. I think we have an air leak. I think I need to change the gaskets for the first carburetor. It seems like when I was putting the brake cleaner here, it affects quite a lot. Still running really little rough. I think I'm gonna buy a new condenser in the distributor. If I remember correct, I didn't change that 7 years ago because I couldn't find one. So maybe I need to order it. There's something like interference going in the ignition, I think, because I put a new tachometer, cheap one, and it is showing almost like double what it should. And it's still running little rough. I think this is like okay, but you know, in the idling it doesn't go like enough. Also, I think it should go over 4,000. But it idles. little rough. There was something extra on the exhaust pipe. Whew. My eyes are burning. Okay, now I have changed the condenser inside the distributor. It wasn't identical, but I sort of got it like staying in there, so we'll see. But at least for test purposes it should be okay. Then yesterday I noticed, or didn't notice, that there's the ground cable for the engine block. I tried to look like on the sides, but I didn't see anything. So maybe there's one in the gearbox. But I put another one in here, just in case. I know it got ground because the starter works pretty okay, but if the ground is bad, maybe that's why it doesn't like to work. Who knows? Now I'm gonna start it again and see if the idle or the overall run conditions are better. And then I bought new spark plugs. We can change those if it's still running rough. And after that, I'm gonna change the coil. The coil is like 7 years old. I bought it new, so it should be okay, but you never know. Somehow I think it is more like ignition problem than fuel problem. And because the tachometer doesn't work, so there's something funky going on, but we'll see. Let's start. Weird that it's like humping. Other than that, it's like running better. It is running better now. Maybe it was the condensator or the ground cable. Oh. Uh-oh. There is water leak somewhere. Where it is? It's not leaking up here. Water pump is leaking like shit. Yep. That needs to be changed. Yeah. I'm glad that it showed up now. I noticed that there was like steam coming around here before, but I think it was so minor leakage, so you couldn't see the actual water. You just saw the vapor, the mist. But I'm glad that it showed up now, that I know to change it when I take the engine out. My wells didn't leak. That's good. Yep, I think that the water pump failure wraps up this episode and the whole engine adjustment tuning. I think the current stage of the engine is pretty good. It was running much better now. When I changed the condensator, it was like much more responsive to the gas from the idle. It started like there was no hesitation at all. So I'm happy about the engine. I need to dive to the ignition more later, and I might remove the points for some modern technology, better for driving, and won't need that much adjustment. And of course, when the engine is out, then I'm gonna change the water pump and remove the intake manifold, intake/exhaust manifold, change all the gaskets and see if there's any cracks and stuff. It's more easier to look at when the engine is out of the car. But overall, I'm happy about the engine. Next, I think I'm gonna start removing stuff out of the car, strip everything out that I have only the shell left. Maybe before I put the car in the grill, I want to play a little bit with the air suspension and try like how they fit and function. The rear end is pretty simple. Just take the coil springs out and put the airbags in. But the front is more complicated. There is less room to wiggle with everything. But I have extra the whole front suspension with the subframe and stuff, so I can like modify the other one and still have one that is stock if I want to like return to the stock look. But I think that is for the next video. So this video was mainly tuning and adjusting older technique. I know that I didn't like move along most efficient way because I was learning at the same time, so bear with me. I know that someone who has worked with this old stuff like his life, he would like instantly went to the right part and change and tuned it in and do it like more professional. But hey, we all gotta learn. So, but I hope that you learned something as well, or at least enjoyed watching when I was struggling. Yeah, we'll see what's coming in the next video. This is unknown path, so I might change what I will do next. But yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.